All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back. So we are solving this advanced algo. So it says create a function, myHobbies. So let's get that set up first. I'm going to create a function, myHobbies, and that's going to take as a parameter hobbies, which will be an array. It will create a data structure of your choice, which will be used to track how many hours has been spent working on each hobby. Okay, so in my mind, I am picturing an object as my data structure where each key is a hobby. So I would have something like playing the clarinet, and the corresponding value will be how many hours have been spent on that hobby. So let's build something like that out. I want to be able to create an object where each one of these hobbies that is the parameter is a key on the object. So I'm going to need some way to loop over the hobbies, and for each hobby, I'm going to initialize its corresponding value in this object to 0, okay? So in order to do that, I'm going to use reduce. I'm going to reduce the hobbies into a single object. So I'm going to say, let's just say my time spent is going to be the result of calling reduce on my hobbies, and reduce will take a reference to the object which I'm creating, and each hobby which I am looping over. And for each hobby, I'm going to create a key on the object and set its corresponding value to 0. At the end of every loop of the reduce method, I'm going to need to remember to return my object, and I'm going to initialize my object, this accumulator variable, as an empty object, okay? So that will create something that looks like for each hobby has the value 0, right? myHobbies should return a function. When this returned function is invoked, this represents an update to the number of hours worked on a hobby. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're working with a closure. So this outer function needs to return a function such that when the inner function gets returned out of the outer function and later is invoked, we'll be actually invoking this inner function. And we'll see how that works in just a minute, okay? So returns a function. When this returned function is invoked, this represents an update to the number of hours worked on a hobby. Okay, so we kind of know that for each update, we need two variables to work with. We need the hobby that is being updated, and we need the hours that are being updated. So this inner function is going to need to take in a reference to that hobby, and let's call this hours practiced. The update should update the cache. The corresponding hobby should be updated with the corresponding number of hours spent. Okay, so that means that for this hobby, we're going to need to set that hobby as a key on my time spent. If it does not already exist, or if it does already exist, reference that existing key. And not only set the hours practiced to this value, but actually update it such that it will add to the existing value with the number of hours practiced. Let's say we're adding an additional 5, then it will go from 0 to 5. If it's already 5, then it will go from 5 to 10, for example. And the last piece of this, at the end of an update, the cache should be returned, okay? So I'm going to just return my time spent at the end here. And then there's this sort of caveat piece here as well. If an update is triggered with no arguments, all values in the cache should be reset to 0, and it should return a string saying tracker has been reset. If the hobby passed in is not there, if that argument is not present, and also if the hours practiced argument is not present, then basically what we're going to want to do is redo all of this logic and reset my time spent to the results of invoking this reduce method all over again. I don't want to duplicate all this code. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all this code and break it out into a second function, which we can just call. I'm going to call this function 0 state my object, and that is going to take in a list of hobbies, And what it's going to return is the result of calling reduce on those hobbies, so that I can simply say here, 0 state my object, passing in hobbies. Okay, and I'm going to do the exact same thing in here, except I'm going to need to update my time spent. So this is going to have to be a let variable type. So my time spent equals 0 state my object again, passing in hobbies again, and I'm going to return tracker has been reset. Okay, so now when I call myHobbies, passing in a list of hobbies, let's say play clarinet, bake bread. Okay, these are my 2 hobbies that are going to initialize my time spent object. Okay, now what is going to be captured in the value returned by the invocation of myHobbies is going to be this inner function, which gets returned out. So I'm going to save that as a new variable. So I'm going to say update hobbies is the result of invoking myHobbies. And now when I call update hobbies, passing in a hobby and hours practiced, let's say the hobby that I'm going to pass in is play clarinet, and I'm going to add 5 hours, and I'm literally just going to run this file in Node to see the output. So I'm going to say Node JavaScript 2, and I see play clarinet 5, bake bread 0. Okay, and all looking good there. Let me just comment this out, and let's just take care of that edge case where if we were to call update hobbies but not pass in anything, I should expect to see out the string tracker has been reset. Okay, any questions? Let me know in the comments.